package wasn't supposed to be there. Nathan Rose stared at his delivery scanner, the green LED blinking mockingly at 11:47 p.m. Package ID: FX 4471 home. Destination: 1247 Maple Street, Somerville. His address, his own goddamn address. He sat on his bicycle in the empty warehouse parking lot, rain drumming against his helmet. The sealed box in his courier bag felt heavier now, like it contained secrets instead of whatever mundane item he'd been paid $43 to transport across the city. In 4 years of last-mile delivery work, Nathan had never once delivered to his own street, let alone his own building. The warehouse loomed dark except for a single security light casting long shadows across the loading dock. Nathan checked his phone. No missed calls from Helena. She'd been asleep when he left for this late run, curled under their threadbare comforter with her back turned toward his side of the bed, the same position she'd held for months now. He pulled the package from his bag. Standard Phoenix Freight Consolidated Shipping label, the same company where Helena worked as a logistics coordinator. The sender's name was listed as B. Laval. Nathan didn't recognize it, but something about the handwriting looked familiar. Too neat, too deliberate. His phone buzzed. Text from Helena. "Working late, don't wait up." Nathan glanced at the timestamp. She'd sent it 27 minutes ago, at 11:20 p.m. on a Wednesday. He pocketed the phone and walked his bike toward the warehouse entrance. The building's directory listed 17 different companies, but only one had lights on. Phoenix Freight, Suite 4B, Helena's company. The same company that had been restructuring for 6 months. The same restructuring that had somehow landed her weekend shifts and late-night inventory checks. Nathan pressed his ear to the warehouse door. Muffled voices echoed from somewhere inside. A man's laugh, then a woman's. The woman sounded like Helena. He stepped back, his breath forming small clouds in the October air. The package in his hands suddenly felt like evidence, though evidence of what, he couldn't say. Nathan had built his life on routine, on the simple exchange of picking up packages and dropping them off. No questions asked, no drama, just work. But this package violated every rule of his orderly existence. A car door slammed in the parking lot behind him. Nathan spun around to see a silver Mercedes SUV pulling away from the building, its headlights sweeping across the empty lot. The license plate was too far to read, but he caught a glimpse of the driver. A man in his 40s with dark hair and expensive clothes. Nathan waited until the SUV disappeared before trying the warehouse entrance. Unlocked. The security guard must have stepped away, or maybe there wasn't one at all. Inside, the building smelled like cardboard and industrial cleaning solution. His footsteps echoed in the empty hallway as he made his way toward Suite 4B. The office door was slightly ajar, and Nathan could see the edge of a desk lamp casting yellow light across scattered papers. He pushed the door open wider. The office was empty, but someone had been there recently. 2 coffee cups sat on the desk, one with lipstick marks that matched Helena's favorite shade. Revlon's Wine with Everything. Her purse sat beside the cups, the same black leather bag she'd carried for 3 years. Nathan set the package on the desk and pulled out his phone. Helena's location showed her at home, asleep. But her purse was here, in an office that should have been locked and empty at midnight. He photographed everything. The coffee cups, the purse, the scattered papers that looked like shipping manifests. One document caught his attention. A customs form dated yesterday, listing luxury handbags valued at $12,000. The form showed Helena's signature as the receiving agent, but the delivery address was listed as 1247 Maple Street, their apartment. Nathan's hands shook as he took pictures of the customs form. Helena made $38,000 a year coordinating shipments for Phoenix. They lived paycheck to paycheck, splitting grocery bills and arguing about utility payments. There was no way she could afford $12,000 in luxury handbags, and there was definitely no way such items should be delivered to their apartment. He heard footsteps in the hallway. Nathan shoved his phone into his jacket and grabbed the package from the desk. The footsteps were getting closer, accompanied by voices. Helena's laugh again, and a man's voice he didn't recognize. "Just grab your purse and we can finish this at your place," the man said. "Brent, someone might see us there," Helena replied. "The neighbor upstairs has insomnia. Your husband's a bicycle courier, not a detective. Besides, he'll be passed out cold by now." Nathan slipped behind a filing cabinet as the door opened wider. Through the gap between cabinets, he watched Helena enter with a tall man in an expensive suit. The same man from the Mercedes SUV, Brent Laval, the name from the package sender. Helena picked up her purse and the coffee cups while Brent gathered papers from the desk. They moved with the efficiency of people who'd done this before, a choreographed routine that spoke of familiarity beyond professional relationships. The shipment should clear customs tomorrow, Brent said, sliding documents into a leather briefcase. Then we can move the items to storage and list them online. At current market rates, we're looking at 30% profit after fees. What about the delivery confirmation? Helena asked. Nathan usually handles residential drops in that area. Already taken care of. I used one of our regular couriers for the fake delivery. The tracking will show it as delivered to your address, but the actual items will go to the storage unit. Nathan's stomach clenched. They were using his home address as a front for smuggling operations, and they'd manipulated the delivery system to make it look legitimate. Helena wasn't just cheating on him. She was using their marriage as cover for criminal activity. We should go, Helena said, checking her phone. I told Nathan I was working late, but he gets suspicious if I'm gone too long. When are you going to leave him? Brent moved closer to Helena, his hand finding the small of her back. This whole charade is getting old. Soon, Helena said, though her voice lacked conviction. I need to figure out the apartment lease first. Nathan's name is on everything, and I can't afford the place alone. You won't be alone, Brent said, leaning down to kiss her neck. Once we liquidate the next few shipments, you'll have enough for your own place. Something better than that dump you're living in now. Nathan pressed himself deeper behind the filing cabinet. His throat felt tight, and his heart hammered against his ribs. 4 years of marriage, and Helena was planning to leave him for a man who called their apartment a dump, a man who was stealing from his own company and using Nathan's address to do it. They left together, turning off the lights and locking the door. Nathan waited in the dark for 10 minutes before emerging from his hiding spot. The office felt different now, contaminated by what he'd witnessed. He picked up the package from where he'd left it on the desk, the same package he was supposed to deliver to his own address, completing the fraudulent paper trail. Nathan walked back to his bicycle in the parking lot, the package tucked securely in his courier bag. Instead of going home, he rode to an all-night diner on Mass Ave and ordered coffee. He needed time to think, time to process what he'd learned. Helena and Brent were smuggling luxury goods through Phoenix Freight, using Nathan's home address as a delivery point to make the transactions look legitimate. They were having an affair, and Helena was planning to leave him once she had enough money from their illegal operation. Worse, they'd been using Nathan himself as an unwitting courier in their scheme. Nathan pulled out his phone and scrolled through his delivery history for the past 6 months. Package ID, FS. 4471 home wasn't the first delivery to his address. There had been dozens of them, all from different senders, but all processed through Phoenix Freight. He'd been delivering packages to himself for months without realizing it, creating a false paper trail that made Helena and Brent's smuggling operation look like legitimate business. The waitress refilled his coffee cup. Nathan stared out the diner window at the empty street, watching a few late-night commuters hurry past. His life had been built on simple routines. Wake up, coffee, check delivery routes, work, come home, dinner with Helena, television, sleep. Rinse and repeat. The routine had felt safe, predictable. Now it felt like a prison designed by people who saw him as nothing more than a useful tool. Nathan opened his phone's note app and began typing. If Helena and Brent thought he was too stupid to notice what they were doing, he'd use that assumption against them. He would document everything, gather evidence, and then he would destroy them both. Not with violence or dramatic confrontation, but with the same methodical approach he brought to his delivery routes. He typed, Day 1, discovered wife Helena cheating with Brent Laval from Phoenix Freight. They're using our address for smuggling operation, using me as unwitting courier. Helena planning to leave once she has enough money. Need to investigate extent of operation and gather evidence. Nathan finished his coffee and rode home through the empty streets. Helena's car was in their assigned parking spot, and the apartment windows were dark. He entered quietly, leaving his courier bag by the door and walking to their bedroom. Helena lay exactly where he'd left her, curled under the comforter with her back toward his side. But her clothes from earlier were scattered on the floor, the same outfit he'd seen her wearing at the warehouse. Her hair smelled like unfamiliar cologne, and her phone lay face down on the nightstand, still warm from recent use. Nathan undressed silently and slipped into bed. Helena didn't move, didn't acknowledge his presence. She was either deeply asleep or pretending to be. Given what he'd learned tonight, Nathan suspected the latter. He lay awake until dawn, staring at the ceiling and planning his next moves. Helena and Brent had no idea he'd discovered their operation. They thought he was just a simple courier, too busy with his delivery routes to notice what was happening in his own life. That misconception would be their downfall. Nathan had 30 days before the next major shipment was scheduled to arrive. He'd seen the date on the customs forms. 30 days to investigate, gather evidence, and position himself to destroy both Helena and Brent while protecting himself legally. He wouldn't confront them directly. He wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing him angry or hurt. Instead, he would methodically dismantle their lives the same way they'd been methodically using his. The morning alarm went off at 6:30 a.m. Helena stirred beside him, stretching and checking her phone before acknowledging his presence. "Morning," she said, her voice neutral. "How was the late run last night?" "Fine," Nathan replied, matching her tone. "Just a standard delivery to the warehouse district." "Good," Helena said, already scrolling through her messages. "I've got inventory today, so I'll be late again." "More restructuring?" Nathan asked. "Something like that." Helena got up and headed for the shower. "Don't wait dinner for me." Nathan watched her disappear into the bathroom, then quietly retrieved his courier bag from by the door. The package was still inside, the package he was supposed to deliver to their own address. Instead of completing the delivery, Nathan opened it carefully, photographing the contents before resealing it. Inside were luxury watch components, Swiss-made parts worth thousands of dollars, according to the customs documentation. The parts would be assembled and sold online, probably through one of the many e-commerce sites that didn't ask too many questions about sourcing. Nathan resealed the package and placed it back in his bag. Today, he would complete the delivery as expected, maintaining the illusion that he was still an unwitting participant in their scheme. But he would also begin his own investigation, starting with a visit to his estranged brother Daryl, who worked in customs at the port of Boston. Helena emerged from the shower, already dressed for work in the professional attire she'd started wearing more frequently over the past few months. She kissed Nathan's cheek absently, a perfunctory gesture that felt more like habit than affection. "See you tonight," she said, grabbing her purse. The same purse that had been sitting in Brent's office at midnight. "See you tonight," Nathan replied. After Helena left, Nathan made coffee and toast, then sat at their small kitchen table with his laptop. He opened a new document and began creating a detailed timeline of the past 6 months, cross-referencing his delivery logs with Helena's work schedule and their joint bank account activity. The pattern was clear once he started looking for it. Helena's late nights coincided with high-value package deliveries to their address. Their bank account showed small but regular deposits that Helena had explained as overtime pay, but the amounts didn't match Phoenix's published overtime rates. Most telling, Helena had opened a separate savings account 3 months ago, an account Nathan only discovered because a statement had been mailed to their apartment by mistake. Nathan called in sick to his dispatcher, something he'd done maybe 5 times in 4 years of courier work. Then he drove to the port of Boston to find his brother Daryl. Daryl Boone worked in the customs office, processing import documentation for container ships arriving from overseas. Nathan hadn't spoken to his brother in over a year, not since Daryl's messy divorce from Avery, a paralegal who'd accused Daryl of being emotionally unavailable and incapable of meaningful relationships. The accusation had stung, because it was probably true, and it was probably genetic. Nathan was beginning to suspect he suffered from the same condition. Nathan found Daryl in the customs office break room, eating a sandwich and reading shipping manifests. "Well, look who's slumming with the working class," Daryl said without looking up. "What brings the bicycle messenger to the docks?" "I need information about import procedures," Nathan said, sitting across from his brother. "Specifically, how someone might manipulate customs documentation to hide the true value of imported goods." Daryl looked up from his sandwich. "That's called smuggling, Nathan. It's illegal." "I know what it's called. I need to understand how it works." "Why?" Nathan hesitated. He'd never been close to Daryl, but his brother was the only person he knew with customs expertise. "Helena's company is importing luxury goods and undervaluing them on customs forms. I think she's involved." "Your wife?" Daryl set down his sandwich. "Helena's involved in smuggling?" "I think so, along with her supervisor, Brent Laval." Daryl was quiet for a moment, studying Nathan's face. "You sure about this? Because once you start digging into customs fraud, there's no going back. If Helena's really involved, she could face federal charges." "I'm sure," Nathan said. Daryl pulled out a notepad and began sketching. "Okay, here's how it typically works. Someone imports high-value goods but declares them as lower-value items on the customs forms. Say you're importing Swiss watches worth $50,000, but you declare them as watch repair parts worth $5,000. You pay customs duties on the lower amount, saving thousands in fees. How do they avoid getting caught? Documentation. You need legitimate-looking purchase orders, invoices, and shipping manifests that support the false valuation. You also need a receiving address that looks residential rather than commercial. Makes it seem like personal imports rather than business inventory. Nathan felt sick. What if someone was using their home address as the receiving location? That would be smart, actually. Customs agents are less likely to inspect packages going to residential addresses, especially if the resident has no prior violations or suspicious activity. What kind of evidence would prove someone was doing this? Daryl looked uncomfortable. Nathan, if Helena's really involved in this, you need to be careful. Customs fraud is a federal crime. People go to prison for this stuff. What kind of evidence? Nathan repeated. Original customs documents showing false valuations, proof that the actual goods are worth more than declared, financial records showing the profits from reselling the goods, email or text communications discussing the scheme. Daryl paused. Why are you asking me this? What are you planning to do? Nathan stood up. I don't know yet, but thank you. Nathan. Daryl grabbed his arm. Be careful. If Helena's involved in federal crimes, you could be considered an accomplice if you don't report it. I'll be careful, Nathan said. He drove back into the city, stopping at an electronics store to buy a small digital camera and a voice recorder. If he was going to gather evidence against Helena and Brent, he needed better tools than his phone camera. That evening, Nathan completed the delivery of the watch components to his own address, following the normal procedure of leaving the package at their apartment building's front desk. An hour later, Helena texted to say she'd pick up a package that was delivered by mistake on her way home from work. Nathan watched from their apartment window as Helena retrieved the package from the front desk, then carried it to her car instead of bringing it upstairs. She drove away immediately, not returning until after 9 p.m. How was work? Nathan asked when she came home. Long day, Helena said, avoiding eye contact. Inventory took forever. Did you pick up that package from downstairs? Package? Helena looked genuinely confused for a moment. Oh, right. Yeah, it was just something for work. I dropped it off at the office. Nathan nodded, filing away another lie. Helena was getting sloppy, probably because she assumed he wasn't paying attention. That assumption would be costly. Over the next week, Nathan established a routine. During his regular courier shifts, he would photograph every Phoenix freight facility he encountered, documenting the locations and security measures. He installed the digital camera in their apartment, hidden behind books on a shelf that gave it a clear view of the front door and Helena's usual spots for leaving packages. He also began following Helena after work, staying far enough back to avoid detection, but close enough to document her activities. Most evenings, she went directly to the Phoenix warehouse where Nathan had first discovered her with Brent. Sometimes she met Brent at restaurants or hotels. Always, she would text Nathan to say she was working late or having drinks with girlfriends. Nathan documented everything in a growing file on his laptop. Photographs, timestamps, GPS locations, transcripts of Helena's lies about her whereabouts. He was building a case piece by piece, like assembling a complex delivery route. On Thursday of the second week, Nathan's surveillance paid off. Following Helena to a storage facility on the outskirts of Somerville, he watched her and Brent load dozens of boxes into individual storage units. The boxes bore Phoenix freight shipping labels, but instead of being delivered to legitimate customers, they were being stockpiled for resale. Nathan photographed the storage facility's address and unit numbers, then spent Friday morning researching the facility's rental policies. Using a fake name, he called and learned that the storage units were rented under B&H Enterprises, probably a combination of Brent and Helena's initials. That evening, Nathan sat at his kitchen table with Helena, eating takeout Chinese food and discussing mundane topics like utility bills and weekend plans. Helena mentioned wanting to visit her friend Zoe over the weekend, a transparent excuse to spend time with Brent. Zoe's been going through a rough patch, Helena said, not meeting Nathan's eyes. I should probably stay over Saturday night, help her through it. That's thoughtful of you, Nathan said. I'll probably just catch up on some courier work. Maybe organize my delivery routes for next week. Sounds productive, Helena said, clearly relieved that Nathan had accepted her lie without question. Saturday morning, Helena packed an overnight bag and left for Zoe's place. Nathan waited an hour, then drove to the storage facility. Helena's car was there, parked beside Brent's Mercedes SUV. Nathan positioned himself across the street with his camera and telephoto lens, documenting their activities. For 3 hours, Helena and Brent moved inventory between storage units, photographing items with professional lighting equipment, and loading selected pieces into Helena's car. They were creating online listings for the smuggled goods, turning the storage facility into a distribution center. Nathan followed Helena when she left the facility, but instead of going home, she drove to an upscale hotel downtown. Brent's Mercedes was already in the parking lot. Nathan checked them into adjoining rooms using fake names, then spent the evening together while Nathan sat in his empty apartment, supposedly believing his wife was comforting a heartbroken friend. By Sunday evening, Nathan had documented enough evidence to prove Helena and Brent were operating a large-scale smuggling operation. But evidence wasn't enough. He needed leverage. He needed to position himself to destroy them both while protecting himself from criminal liability. Nathan spent Sunday night researching asset protection strategies and divorce law. If Helena was planning to leave him anyway, he would make sure she left with nothing. But first, he needed to understand the full scope of their operation and identify all the participants. Monday morning brought a breakthrough. While Helena showered, Nathan photographed the contents of her purse, including business cards for 3 different online marketplaces and a handwritten list of prices that corresponded to items he'd seen at the storage facility. Helena wasn't just helping Brent smuggle goods. She was managing the entire retail operation. Nathan also found a burner phone in Helena's purse, a device she'd never mentioned owning. The phone's recent calls showed frequent contact with numbers in New York, Los Angeles, and Miami. Helena and Brent weren't just operating locally, they were part of a national smuggling network. That discovery changed everything. Nathan was no longer dealing with a simple infidelity case or even basic customs fraud. Helena and Brent were involved in organized crime, using his home address and his unwitting courier services to facilitate interstate smuggling operations. Nathan realized he needed professional help. That evening, he called Avery, Daryl's ex-wife. Despite her contentious divorce from his brother, Avery was an experienced paralegal with connections throughout the legal community. Nathan? Avery sounded surprised to hear from him. Is everything okay? I need legal advice, Nathan said, about customs fraud and asset protection. Can we meet? This sounds serious. Are you in trouble? Not yet, Nathan said, but I might be soon. They met Wednesday evening at a coffee shop in Cambridge. Nathan explained the situation carefully, showing Avery selected pieces of evidence without revealing the full extent of his surveillance activities. Jesus, Nathan, Avery said after reviewing the customs documents. Helena could be looking at federal prison time, and if you're listed as the receiving party on these shipments, you could be charged as an accomplice. Even if I didn't know what was happening? Ignorance isn't always a defense, especially if prosecutors think you should have known. The fact that packages were being delivered to your address creates a presumption of knowledge. Nathan felt his stomach clench. What do I do? You have a few options, Avery said, pulling out a legal pad. Option 1. Report Helena and Brent to federal authorities immediately. Cooperate fully with the investigation and hope they believe you were an unwitting participant. What's option 2? Option 2 is more complicated. You document everything, gather irrefutable evidence of their crimes, then use that evidence to protect yourself while ensuring they face maximum consequences. How would that work? Avery looked around the coffee shop, then leaned closer. You create a paper trail showing that you discovered the smuggling operation and took steps to distance yourself from it. You document your attempts to end your involvement, and you make sure Helena and Brent are caught red-handed with evidence that clearly shows you weren't a willing participant. That sounds risky. It is risky, but option 1 might not protect you if Helena decides to claim you were a knowing participant. If she's willing to cheat on you and use your address for federal crimes, what makes you think she won't throw you under the bus to save herself? Nathan considered this. Helena had already proven she was willing to lie to him, manipulate him, and use him. If arrested, she might indeed claim he was a willing participant to reduce her own sentence. If I chose option 2, what would I need to do? Document everything. Create evidence showing you discovered their scheme and disapproved of it. Make sure there's proof that you tried to end your involvement. Then make sure they're caught in a way that clearly demonstrates your innocence. How long would this take? Depends on how carefully you want to proceed. If you're going to do this, you need to do it right. One mistake could land you in federal prison alongside Helena. Nathan thanked Avery and drove home, thinking about his options. Helena was already planning to leave him once she had enough money from the smuggling operation. She was using his home, his address, and his courier services to commit federal crimes. If caught, she might try to implicate him to reduce her own sentence. Nathan had always been a careful, methodical person. Now those traits would either save him or destroy him. Thursday morning, Nathan made his decision. He would implement option 2, but he would do it perfectly. He would gather irrefutable evidence of Helena and Brent's crimes while creating an unshakable paper trail of his own innocence. Then he would destroy them both. Nathan started by opening a safety deposit box at a bank where neither he nor Helena had accounts. He stored copies of all his evidence in the box, along with a detailed timeline of his discoveries and a sworn statement describing his investigation. Next, he began creating documented attempts to distance himself from the smuggling operation. He sent anonymous tips to Phoenix Freight's corporate headquarters, reporting suspicious activity in their Somerville facility. He filed complaints with the Better Business Bureau about irregularities in package delivery procedures. He created a paper trail showing that concerned citizen Nathan Rowe was trying to report criminal activity. Then Nathan began phase 2 of his plan, expanding his surveillance of Helena and Brent to identify all participants in their operation. Using a rental car instead of his own vehicle, Nathan followed Helena and Brent to meetings with other conspirators. He documented a network that included Kellen Drake, a nervous accountant from Phoenix who processed the false customs paperwork, and Zoe Cresswell, Helena's friend, who provided cover stories for Helena's absences. Nathan realized that Zoe wasn't an innocent friend providing alibis. She was an active participant in the smuggling operation, managing online sales through her own e-commerce accounts. Helena's supposed girls' nights with Zoe were actually business meetings, where they planned inventory distribution and pricing strategies. The discovery that Helena's best friend was also betraying him hit Nathan harder than learning about Brent. Zoe had been to their apartment dozens of times, sharing meals and conversations with Nathan, while secretly helping Helena commit crimes that could destroy his life. Nathan added Zoe to his surveillance rotation, documenting her activities and financial transactions. By the end of the third week, he had identified a 6-person smuggling ring operating out of Phoenix Freight, with tentacles reaching into 3 other shipping companies and online marketplaces in 5 states. Nathan's evidence file now contained hundreds of photographs, dozens of recorded conversations, financial records, customs documents, and witness statements. He had built a federal case strong enough to destroy everyone involved. But first, he needed to ensure his own protection. Nathan met with Avery again, this time at her law office. "I've been researching your situation," Avery said, spreading documents across her desk. "The good news is that if you can prove you were an unwitting participant who took steps to report the crimes once you discovered them, you'll probably avoid prosecution. What's the bad news?" "The bad news is that Helena can still cause you serious problems even if she doesn't succeed in implicating you criminally. She could claim you were abusive, unstable, or threatening. She could tie up your assets in divorce proceedings while she's under federal investigation. She could make your life hell even if she goes to prison. So, I need to neutralize her ability to retaliate." "Exactly. You need to control the narrative and the timing. Make sure that when this comes out, you're clearly the sufferer, not the perpetrator." Nathan spent the weekend planning his endgame. He would trigger the collapse of Helena and Brent's operation while simultaneously protecting himself and ensuring maximum damage to everyone who had betrayed him. Monday morning, Nathan implemented the first phase of his plan. He called in sick to his courier job, then spent the day installing hidden cameras throughout their apartment. He wanted complete documentation of Helena's final week of freedom. That evening, Nathan casually mentioned to Helena that he'd been thinking about their relationship. "We should talk about our future," Nathan said over dinner. "I've been wondering if we're really happy together." Helena looked startled. For months, Nathan had been the passive partner, accepting her explanations and excuses without question. This was the first time he'd initiated a serious conversation about their relationship. "What do you mean?" Helena asked carefully. "I mean, I think we've been drifting apart. Your work schedule, my career routes. We barely see each other anymore. Maybe we should consider taking some time apart." Helena's face went through several expressions: surprise, relief, calculation. Nathan could see her thinking, trying to determine if this was a trap or an opportunity. "That might be good for both of us," Helena said finally. "I've been thinking the same thing." "Really? How long have you been thinking about it?" "A few months," Helena admitted. "Since the company restructuring started, I've been wondering if I need more space to figure out what I want." Nathan nodded sympathetically. "Maybe you should stay at Zoe's for a while. Take some time to think about things without the pressure of living together." "That's probably a good idea," Helena said, and Nathan could hear the relief in her voice. She thought he was making it easy for her to leave him for Brent. "When were you thinking?" Nathan asked. "Maybe this weekend?" I could pack some things and stay at Zoe's for a few weeks? Sure, Nathan said. Take whatever time you need. Helena smiled at him, the first genuine smile he'd seen from her in months. She thought she was escaping, moving closer to her new life with Brent and their smuggling profits. She had no idea she was walking into a trap. Over the next 3 days, Nathan watched Helena pack her belongings while secretly documenting everything she took. She packed not just clothes and personal items, but also file folders, a laptop Nathan had never seen before, and several prepaid credit cards. Thursday evening, Helena made her final mistake. She brought Brent to their apartment. Nathan was supposedly working a late courier shift, but he was actually parked across the street with a telephoto lens, photographing everyone who entered or left their building. At 8:30 p.m., Brent's Mercedes SUV pulled into Nathan's assigned parking space. Helena let Brent into their apartment, and Nathan watched through his hidden cameras as they moved freely through his home, discussing their plans with the casual closeness of long-term partners. After this weekend, we won't need to be so careful, Brent said, sitting on Nathan's couch with a beer from Nathan's refrigerator. Once Helena's moved out, we can operate more openly. I still think we should be cautious about the storage units, Helena replied. If Nathan gets suspicious and starts asking questions, those units are our biggest vulnerability. Nathan's not going to get suspicious. The guy barely notices what's happening in his own life. He's been delivering packages to himself for months without figuring it out. Helena laughed. True. Sometimes I wonder what I ever saw in him. He's so passive, so content with his little courier routes and his little life. Well, you won't have to wonder much longer, Brent said, pulling Helena closer to him on Nathan's couch. By Christmas, you'll be living in a real place with a real man. What about the apartment? Helena asked. Nathan's name is on the lease. Let him deal with it. Once he realizes you're not coming back, he'll probably move back in with his mother or something. These passive types never fight for anything. Nathan watched from his car as Helena and Brent spent the evening in his apartment, making plans for their future while casually destroying his. They ordered takeout using his Netflix account, used his shower, and slept in his bed. When they woke up Friday morning, they made coffee with his coffee maker and discussed their inventory plans over his kitchen table. Nathan documented everything, adding timestamp after timestamp to his growing evidence file. Helena and Brent's casual cruelty was almost worse than their criminal activity. They weren't just stealing from customs authorities and cheating on their respective partners. They were treating Nathan like he was invisible, worthless, too stupid to matter. Friday evening, Helena finished packing and announced she was moving to Zoe's apartment for a few weeks. I think this will be good for both of us, Helena said, kissing Nathan's cheek with the same perfunctory affection she'd shown for months. I'm sure it will, Nathan replied. Helena loaded her car with suitcases, boxes, and file folders. Nathan helped her carry bags, playing the role of the supportive husband, even as she prepared to abandon him for a life funded by federal crimes. I'll call you in a few days, Helena said, backing out of their parking space. We can talk about next steps then. Sure, Nathan said. Take care of yourself. Nathan watched Helena drive away, then returned to their apartment. For the first time in months, he was truly alone. No Helena, no lies, no elaborate performances of marital normalcy. Just Nathan and the evidence of his wife's betrayal, documented in exhaustive detail across dozens of hidden cameras. Nathan sat at his kitchen table with his laptop and began composing his final report. Over the past month, he had documented a federal smuggling operation involving 6 individuals, 3 shipping companies, and millions of dollars in customs fraud. He had recorded conversations, photographed evidence, and created an unshakable timeline of criminal activity. But more importantly, Nathan had documented his own innocence. His evidence file showed clearly that he had been an unwitting participant in the scheme, that he had discovered the crimes through his own investigation, and that he had attempted to report the criminal activity through proper channels. Nathan saved his report and encrypted the files. Tomorrow, he would begin the final phase of his plan, ensuring that Helena, Brent, and their co-conspirators faced the full consequences of their actions while he emerged as the clear sufferer of their deception. Nathan had spent 30 days being methodical, patient, and invisible. Now it was time to be devastating. Saturday morning, Nathan drove to the FBI field office in Boston. He carried a briefcase containing printed copies of every piece of evidence he'd gathered. Photographs, financial records, customs documents, recorded conversations, and a detailed timeline of the smuggling operation. Special Agent Sarah Mitchell was a 15-year veteran of customs fraud investigations. She listened to Nathan's story with professional skepticism that gradually shifted to intense interest as he presented his evidence. Mr. Rowe, Agent Mitchell said after reviewing the first folder of documents, "This is extraordinary work. Most people who suspect customs fraud bring us a handful of receipts and some suspicions. You've built a complete federal case." "I wanted to be thorough," Nathan said. "How long did you say this investigation took?" 30 days. Once I realized what was happening, I documented everything." Agent Mitchell spread photographs across her desk. Images of Helena and Brent moving inventory, screenshots of online sales listings, bank records showing profits from the smuggling operation. "These people were using your home address for their receiving point." "Yes, and they used my courier services to create false delivery confirmations. I was an unwitting participant until I discovered the operation a month ago." "And you documented your attempts to report the crimes?" Nathan handed her another folder. "Anonymous tips to Phoenix Freight's corporate office, complaints to the Better Business Bureau, research into customs fraud reporting procedures. I tried to report it through proper channels, but I needed concrete evidence before making formal accusations." Agent Mitchell nodded approvingly. "Smart approach. Unfounded accusations of federal crimes can backfire. But this," she gestured at the evidence spread across her desk, "this is irrefutable. What happens next?" "We'll need to verify your evidence and conduct our own investigation. But based on what you've shown me, we're looking at a multi-defendant federal case. Customs fraud, conspiracy, money laundering, possibly RICO violations if this network extends beyond the people you've identified. How long before arrests are made? That depends on how much additional evidence we can gather. We'll want to catch them in the act if possible, rather than just charging them based on historical evidence. Are they still actively operating?" "Yes. Helena moved out yesterday, supposedly to stay with her friend Zoe. But I think she's actually moving in with Brent so they can operate more openly." "Do you know where they're staying?" Nathan provided addresses for Brent's condo, Zoe's apartment, and the storage facility where they kept their inventory. Agent Mitchell made notes, already planning surveillance operations. "Mr. Rowe, I have to ask, why didn't you confront your wife when you first discovered the affair and the smuggling?" Nathan considered the question. "Because confronting her wouldn't have stopped the criminal activity. It would have just made them more careful. I wanted to make sure they faced real consequences." "And the personal aspect?" "Your marriage. My marriage was over the moment Helena decided to use our home for federal crimes. Everything after that was just documentation." Agent Mitchell closed the evidence folders. "We'll be in touch within 48 hours. In the meantime, continue your normal routine. Don't do anything that might alert the subjects to this investigation." Nathan drove home feeling lighter than he had in months. The evidence was in federal hands now, and Helena's fate was sealed. But Nathan wasn't finished. He still had personal scores to settle. Sunday evening, Nathan called Helena. "Hi," Helena said, sounding slightly surprised. "How are you doing?" "I'm okay. Still adjusting to the apartment being so quiet. How's Zoe's place?" "It's good. Really good, actually. Zoe's been great about giving me space to think." Nathan knew Helena wasn't at Zoe's apartment. He'd driven by earlier and seen no sign of her car. She was probably at Brent's condo, lying about her location out of habit. "I've been thinking about us," Nathan said. "About our future." "Yeah? What about it?" "I think we should make this separation official. Maybe start divorce proceedings." There was a pause. "That seems fast, Nathan. We've only been separated for 2 days." "I know, but I think it's better to be honest about where this is heading. We've been growing apart for months. This separation just made it official." "If that's what you want," Helena said, and Nathan could hear relief in her voice again. She wanted the divorce, but she wanted Nathan to initiate it so she could maintain the fiction that she was the sufferer. "I'll file the paperwork this week," Nathan said. "We should probably discuss how to divide our assets." "We don't have many assets to divide," Helena said quickly. "The apartment lease is in your name, and we don't own anything valuable." Helena was already trying to conceal the profits from her smuggling operation. She wanted a quick, simple divorce that wouldn't require detailed financial disclosure. "Still, we should do it properly," Nathan said. "Maybe we could meet next weekend to go through everything, make sure we're both being fair." "Sure," Helena said. "We can meet at the apartment Saturday afternoon. I'll bring Zoe for moral support if that's okay." "Of course. Zoe's always been a good friend to both of us." Nathan ended the call and made a note in his timeline. Helena wanted to meet Saturday to discuss divorce. and she was bringing Zoe. Nathan would make sure that meeting was memorable. Monday morning brought a call from Agent Mitchell. Mr. Rowe, we've verified several elements of your evidence and begun surveillance of the subjects. We're planning to execute search warrants later this week. How can I help? Actually, we'd like you to maintain normal contact with your wife. If she suspects federal investigation, she might destroy evidence or flee. Can you continue to act as if you're unaware of her criminal activities? Absolutely. We're also going to need you to testify before a grand jury, probably next month. Are you prepared for that? Nathan thought about sitting in a federal courtroom, describing how his wife had used their marriage as cover for international smuggling operations. Yes, I'm prepared. Tuesday evening, Nathan received an unexpected visitor. Daryl knocked on his apartment door, looking uncomfortable and avoiding eye contact. "We need to talk," Daryl said. Nathan let his brother into the apartment. Daryl walked around the living room, examining the space where Helena and Brent had spent their final evening together. "Avery called me," Daryl said. "She said you've been investigating Helena for customs fraud." "That's right. And you went to the FBI?" "Yes." Daryl sat heavily on the couch. "Nathan, do you understand what you've done? If Helena gets convicted of federal crimes, it's going to be in the newspapers. Everyone's going to know." Good. Good. "Nathan, this affects our whole family. Mom's going to be devastated. People at my job are going to ask questions. You couldn't just divorce Helena quietly." Nathan stared at his brother. "Helena was using our apartment to commit federal crimes, Daryl. She was using my courier services to create false documentation for a smuggling operation. If I'd been caught unknowingly participating, I could have gone to federal prison. But you weren't caught. You could have just confronted her privately, made her stop. And what if she didn't stop? What if she decided to claim I was a willing participant to save herself? What if she convinced federal prosecutors that I knew about the operation all along?" Daryl was quiet for a moment. "I didn't think about that." "Helena made her choices, Daryl. She chose to commit federal crimes. She chose to use my home and my work to do it. She chose to have an affair with her supervisor. Now she gets to live with the consequences." "What about forgiveness? What about trying to work things out?" Nathan looked at his brother with something approaching pity. "Daryl, Helena spent months lying to my face while using our marriage as cover for criminal activity. She was planning to leave me anyway, once she had enough money from selling smuggled goods. There's nothing to work out." "You sound different," Daryl said. "Harder." "Maybe I am harder. Maybe I needed to be." Wednesday afternoon, Nathan met with a divorce attorney recommended by Avery. The attorney, Patricia Walsh, reviewed Nathan's documentation of Helena's assets and criminal activity with professional interest. "This is unusual," Walsh said. "Most divorce cases involve disputes over known assets. Your wife appears to have been concealing significant income from criminal activities. Can we recover those assets? If she's convicted of federal crimes, any profits from those crimes will be subject to forfeiture. But we can also pursue civil recovery of assets that were obtained through fraudulent use of marital resources, specifically the use of your home address and your courier services." "How much are we talking about?" Walsh reviewed Nathan's financial analysis. "Based on your documentation, your wife and her co-conspirators probably netted several $100,000 over the past year. If we can prove that these profits were obtained through misuse of marital assets, you might be entitled to significant compensation. Even if we're getting divorced? Especially because you're getting divorced. The court will want to ensure that marital assets aren't being hidden or misused. If Helena was using your home and your business connections to generate income, you have a legitimate claim to a portion of that income." Nathan signed a retainer agreement and authorized Walsh to begin divorce proceedings. Helena thought she was getting a simple, uncontested divorce that would let her walk away with her smuggling profits. Instead, she was about to face aggressive asset recovery proceedings that would expose every dollar she'd hidden. Thursday evening, Nathan's surveillance cameras captured an interesting development. Helena returned to their apartment while Nathan was supposedly working a late courier shift. She let herself in with her key and spent 2 hours searching through Nathan's belongings, looking for something specific. Nathan watched from his car as Helena rifled through his desk, his computer files, and his courier equipment. She was looking for evidence that Nathan suspected her criminal activities. Finding nothing obvious, she planted a USB drive in his courier bag, probably containing fabricated evidence that would implicate Nathan in the smuggling operation, if discovered by federal investigators. Helena was trying to create insurance against Nathan's potential testimony. If federal agents arrested her, she could claim that Nathan was the real mastermind and point to the planted evidence as proof. Nathan photographed Helena planting the USB drive, adding another felony to her growing list of crimes. Planting false evidence was obstruction of justice, a federal crime that carried its own prison sentence. Friday morning, Agent Mitchell called with an update. "We're executing search warrants today," she said. "Phoenix freight offices, the storage facility, Brent Laval's residence, and your wife's current location. Are you prepared for this to become public?" "I've been prepared for weeks," Nathan said. "We'll also need to search your apartment as a formality. We know you're cooperating, but we need to document that your home was used without your knowledge." "I understand, but there's something you should know. Helena planted evidence in my courier bag last night. A USB drive that probably contains fabricated documents designed to implicate me. You have proof of this?" "Video evidence from hidden cameras. She broke into our apartment and planted the drive while I was supposedly at work. Send us that footage immediately." Planting false evidence is obstruction of justice. Nathan sent the video files to Agent Mitchell, then sat back to wait for the day's events to unfold. At 11:30 a.m., Nathan's phone rang. Helena was crying. "Nathan, something terrible is happening," she sobbed. "FBI agents are searching my office. They're saying I'm under investigation for customs fraud. I don't understand what's happening." Nathan felt nothing listening to Helena's tears. No sympathy, no regret, no satisfaction. Just a cold sense of completion. "That sounds serious," Nathan said. "Do you have a lawyer?" "I can't afford a lawyer. Nathan, I think someone's trying to frame me. Maybe Brent or someone at the company." "I need your help." "How can I help?" "Can you come to the police station? I need someone who knows me, someone who can vouch for my character." Nathan considered this request. Helena wanted him to provide character references while she was being arrested for crimes she'd committed against him. The irony was almost perfect. "I'll see what I can do," Nathan said. At 2 p.m., Nathan received another call. This time it was Brent Laval. "Is this Nathan Rowe?" Brent's voice was tight with panic. "Yes! This is Brent, Helena's supervisor at Phoenix. We've met a few times." Nathan remembered seeing Brent at company parties, charming and confident, treating Nathan like an irrelevant spouse. "I remember. Listen, the FBI raided our offices today. They're claiming Helena and I were involved in some kind of smuggling operation. This is all a misunderstanding, but Helena mentioned that some packages might have been delivered to your address by mistake. Can you confirm that you never signed for or accepted any Phoenix packages?" Brent was trying to establish that Nathan had no knowledge of the smuggling operation. He was probably hoping Nathan would provide statements that could be used in their defense. "I sign for packages all the time," Nathan said. "Hey, it's part of my job as a courier. But specifically Phoenix packages addressed to your home address, I'd have to check my records," Nathan said. "Why don't you have your lawyer contact me with specific questions?" "My lawyer?" "You're under federal investigation, Brent. You should definitely have a lawyer." The call ended abruptly. Nathan imagined Brent sitting in his expensive condo, realizing that his career, his freedom, and his future with Helena were all disappearing simultaneously. Saturday morning, Nathan prepared for his final meeting with Helena. She called Friday night to confirm their divorce discussion, though her voice had been hollow with shock. Helena was facing federal charges, asset forfeiture, and prison time. The last thing she wanted to discuss was dividing marital property. But Nathan had insisted on the meeting, claiming he wanted to support her through this difficult time. Helena had agreed, probably hoping Nathan would provide the character references and emotional support she desperately needed. Nathan cleaned the apartment and set up chairs around the kitchen table. He wanted everything to look normal when Helena and Zoe arrived. He also activated all his hidden cameras and voice recorders. This conversation would be the final piece of evidence in his case against Helena. At 1 p.m., Helena knocked on the door. Nathan opened it to find his wife flanked by Zoe, both women looking haggard and frightened. Helena had been crying, and Zoe looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Hi," Helena said quietly. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." "Of course," Nathan said, stepping aside to let them enter. This is a difficult time for everyone. They sat around the kitchen table where Nathan and Helena had shared hundreds of meals over 4 years of marriage. Now the table felt like a conference room where enemies gathered to negotiate surrender terms. "Nathan," Helena began, "I know you must have questions about what's happening." "I do have questions," Nathan said. "But maybe you should start by telling me what you think is happening." Helena glanced at Zoe, who nodded encouragingly. Someone at Phoenix has been using my name and access codes to commit customs fraud, Helena said. The FBI thinks I was involved, but I swear to you, Nathan, I had no idea what was happening. What kind of customs fraud? Undervaluing imported goods to avoid paying proper duties. Someone was using company resources to smuggle luxury items and sell them online. Do you know who? Probably Brent, Helena said, not meeting Nathan's eyes. He had access to all the systems, and he was always pressuring employees to cut corners on paperwork. Nathan nodded sympathetically. That must be frightening, being accused of something you didn't do. It is, Helena said, tears starting again. Nathan, I need to ask you something important. The FBI might contact you as part of their investigation. If they do, I need you to tell them that I would never do anything illegal. Of course. And if they ask about packages being delivered here, you should tell them that you never knowingly accepted any Phoenix packages at our address. Nathan pretended to consider this. Helena, I do remember some packages being delivered here with Phoenix labels. I signed for them as part of my normal courier duties. Helena's face went pale. You signed for Phoenix packages? A few times over the past 6 months. I assumed they were legitimate deliveries, maybe something you'd ordered for work. Oh God, Zoe said quietly. Helena, if Nathan signed for the packages, it creates a paper trail. Nathan, Helena said urgently, when the FBI asks you about those packages, you need to be very clear that you didn't know what was in them. You were just signing for deliveries as part of your job. I can tell them the truth, Nathan said. But Helena, there's something else we need to discuss. What? Our divorce. I filed the paperwork yesterday. Helena looked confused by the abrupt change of subject. Okay, I thought we were going to discuss that today. We are. My lawyer needs documentation of all our assets and income sources, including any income you might have received from sources other than your regular Phoenix salary. I don't have any other income sources, Helena said quickly. Are you sure? Because my lawyer found evidence of several bank accounts and credit cards in your name that I didn't know about. Helena exchanged glances with Zoe. Those are just savings accounts from overtime pay. Helena, Nathan said gently, my lawyer also found evidence of online sales accounts registered to your name and Zoe's name, accounts that generated significant income over the past year. The room went silent. Helena stared at Nathan with growing alarm, finally realizing that her husband wasn't the passive, oblivious man she'd thought he was. Nathan, Zoe said carefully, what exactly did your lawyer find? Evidence that Helena and several other people have been operating an online sales business using goods obtained through customs fraud. Evidence that Helena was having an affair with Brent Laval. Evidence that Helena was planning to leave me once she had enough money from selling smuggled goods. Helena's face went white. You've been investigating me? For 30 days, Nathan said. Ever since I discovered what you and Brent were doing. You knew? Helena's voice was barely a whisper. I knew about the smuggling. I knew about the affair. I knew about your plans to leave me. I documented everything. Zoe stood up abruptly. I need to leave. Helena, we should go. Sit down, Zoe, Nathan said calmly. You're part of this conversation too. I don't know what you're talking about, Zoe said, but she sat back down. Zoe, you've been managing online sales for Helena and Brent's smuggling operation. You provided alibis when Helena was meeting with Brent. You helped launder money through your e-commerce accounts. You're not Helena's friend. You're her business partner. Zoe started crying. Helena, he knows everything. How? Helena demanded. How could you possibly know all of this? Because I'm not stupid, Helena. I'm not passive. I'm not the irrelevant husband you thought you married. When I realized you were using our home for federal crimes, I investigated. When I discovered you were planning to leave me, I prepared. When I found out you were willing to let me take the blame for your crimes, I protected myself. You reported us to the FBI, Helena said, understanding flooding her face. Yes, you destroyed my life. No, Helena, you destroyed your own life. I just documented it. Helena stood up, her shock turning to rage. You fool, you could have just confronted me. We could have worked this out. Worked what out, Helena? Your affair? Your smuggling operation? Your plan to abandon me once you'd stolen enough money? It wasn't supposed to hurt you. Using my home address for federal crimes wasn't supposed to hurt me. Using my courier services to create false documentation wasn't supposed to hurt me. Planning to claim I was a willing participant if you got caught wasn't supposed to hurt me? Helena's rage collapsed into desperate pleading. Nathan, please! Call the FBI. Tell them you made a mistake. Tell them I'm innocent. But you're not innocent, Helena. You're guilty of everything I reported, and more. More? Nathan stood up and walked to his courier bag. He pulled out the USB drive Helena had planted there, holding it up so she could see it. Thursday night, you broke into our apartment and planted fabricated evidence in my work equipment. Evidence designed to implicate me in your crimes if federal investigators discovered it. Helena stared at the USB drive with horror. How did you know? Hidden cameras. I have video of you planning this drive, along with audio of you and Brent discussing how to frame me if you got caught. Zoe was sobbing openly now. Helena, we're going to prison. Yes, Nathan said. You are. Helena sat back down, her face blank with shock. I don't understand. Why didn't you just leave me? Why did you have to destroy everything? Because, Helena, you made me an unwitting accomplice to federal crimes. You used our marriage as cover for criminal activity. You were prepared to let me take the blame to save yourself. Leaving you wouldn't have protected me from prosecution. So you destroyed me instead. I protected myself. Your destruction was just a side effect. Helena stared at Nathan for a long moment, seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time in their marriage. You're not the man I married. No, Nathan agreed. The man you married was weak and trusting. The man you married believed that people were fundamentally decent. The man you married thought marriage was a partnership based on honesty and loyalty. And now? Now I know better. Zoe suddenly stood up again. I can't do this. Helena, I have to think about my own situation. What do you mean? Helena asked. I mean I need a lawyer. I need to consider a plea agreement. I can't go to federal prison to protect you and Brent. Zoe, please. We're friends. We were business partners, Zoe corrected, and the business is finished. Zoe left the apartment, abandoning Helena the same way Helena had planned to abandon Nathan. Helena watched her closest ally disappear, then turned back to Nathan with something approaching desperation. What do you want, Nathan? Money? I can give you half of everything I made. More than half. I don't want your money, Helena. It's evidence in a federal crime. It's going to be forfeited anyway. Then what? What do you want? Nathan considered the question. What did he want? Justice? Revenge? Vindication? I want you to understand, Nathan said finally, that actions have consequences. I want you to know that the passive husband you thought you could manipulate and discard was actually documenting your every move. I want you to realize that your arrogance and cruelty destroyed your own life. I never meant to hurt you, Helena said quietly. Yes, you did. Maybe not at first, but by the end, you absolutely meant to hurt me. You were prepared to let me go to federal prison to save yourself. That's not accidental cruelty, Helena. That's calculated evil. Helena was quiet for several minutes, staring at the kitchen table where they'd planned vacations and discussed dreams during happier times. What happens now? She asked. Now you hire a lawyer and prepare for federal trial. You'll probably be offered a plea agreement if you testify against Brent and the others. Take it. Federal prison is better than state prison. And us? There is no us. There hasn't been an us for months. The only difference is that now it's official. Helena stood up slowly, gathering her purse and jacket. Can I ask you one more question? Sure. When did you stop loving me? Nathan thought about it. The night I found you in Brent's office laughing about how stupid and irrelevant I was. That's when I realized you weren't the person I thought I'd married. I did love you once, Helena said. In the beginning. I know. But love isn't enough when it's not backed up by respect and loyalty.